The Culture Pop Podcast is brought to you by the law offices of Jacob Emrani.
Accident or injury, call Jacob Emrani. Call Jacob.
Hey, it's Mase. If you or a friend or loved one is injured in an accident, the first person you should call is my friend Jacob. When I did this, Jacob was great. He helped me by talking through the next steps, which really put my mind at ease. When you're injured in an accident, you got to have an expert. That's why you call Jacob, just like I did. Call Jacob, 844-24-JACOB. That's 844-24-JACOB, or visit calljacob.com.
Call Jacob.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Culture Pop Podcast. I'm Steve Mason along with Sue 𝐂𝐤𝐿. This is the show where we talk about everything going on in the world of pop culture. Great guest today, House of the Dragon director Clare Kilner. She did 3 episodes last year, including episode 9, the penultimate, which was great. And in season 2, she just did episode 2, which aired on June the 23rd, and she's got episode 5 coming up. So if you're a House of the Dragon fan, this is the place to be. Sue, you've gotten into it, right?
I'm so into it. I'm so into it that I went back to watch Game of Thrones.
And by the way, show your chart. Sue was getting ready for this conversation with Claire and watching House of the Dragon, and she's put together, there is the Targaryen family tree. No, what? See, you're putting in the time. Putting in the time. I like that. So before we do that, I want to do a couple other things. First of all, are you a Star Wars fan? Do you consider yourself to be a Star Wars fan?
I saw the first one and that was it.
Yeah, a lot of people, like John Ireland, who I work with, saw the first one and that was it. I am a big Star Wars fan. I've seen all the movies. And I've watched some of the TV shows, like, for example, The Mandalorian. Really good show. I followed along with that one. They've got a show out right now called The Acolyte. This is on Disney+. It is a series based on the Star Wars franchise, and it has got a 14% audience score. That is absolutely awful. Fans of Star Wars do not like this show and are revolting against it. They're not tuning in. They're putting out negative reviews. They're on social media, all negative stuff. Sue, I think it's tough to make something in the Star Wars franchise because the standards are so high, right?
Well, Mandalorian, I heard was great and very popular. So was that the last bastion of this whole Star Wars universe, or was there something that came out after this, after Mandalorian?
There have been a couple of shows. There was the Boba Fett show. There have been other shows. The point I want to make is there have been multiple shows, and I wonder if Disney's not going to the well too many times. Like, in the same way there were too many Marvel movies for a while, maybe there's too much Star Wars, and it's not special anymore.
Yeah, but you were saying that The Mandalorian was great. I don't know about the other ones that you talked about. I don't know what the reviews were on those. So is it because it's saturated, or is it because this particular show, or it's a show?
Yeah, it's a series, yeah.
Is it because this particular series is just not good?
I am going to say it's saturation.
Okay.
I'm going to say it's saturation because the critics' reviews are terrible too. So when the reviews from the critics and the reviews from the fans are both awful, it's just not working. It's just not working.
Right, but you're saying that the reviews are bad, but you just said now the reviews are bad, which I asked, is it because it's bad? You think it's just saturated. There's a difference between it being saturated and just the fact that it's just outright not good.
Well, I will speak as someone who has never seen the show.
Okay. You sound like me.
Yeah. I think there's too much Star Wars.
Okay.
I think it's got to be made special. Like, for example, Marvel. There's only one Marvel movie this year. That's smart. Now, for a while there, they were doing like 3 of them. There have been multiple Star Wars series on Disney+. Too many of them, I think. But in that same category, I wanted to mention that there is a reboot of a movie called Spaceballs. Speaking of Star Wars, Spaceballs came out just after Star Wars did. It's a Mel Brooks movie, and it makes, obviously, it's a send-up of Star Wars. Now, is this a movie that needed a sequel, Sue?
No. And to tell you the truth, I don't even know if I ever saw it. That's how insignificant.
You don't know if you ever saw Spaceballs?
I don't think I did. Who was in it? You remember?
Yeah, it was Bill Pullman.
No, I never saw it.
You never saw it? Bill Pullman, John Candy, Rick Moranis. Joan Rivers was the voice of C-3PO.
It just didn't interest me. You know, I love Mel Brooks, and I've loved pretty much everything he's done.
Yeah.
But this particular genre wasn't anything that interested me.
Yeah, I personally, I did not like, I thought Spaceballs was silly. I don't think it holds up at all.
Silly's good. Silly's good.
But I don't understand why you're making a sequel or a remake of a movie that I thought was just mediocre. Just mediocre.
Yeah.
If you're a Spaceballs fan, and I'm sure they're out there, sorry. All right, so Baby Reindeer is a show that we have both watched now. It's comedian Richard Gadd. He turned his experience with a stalker into a one-man show, which turned into a series. What did you think of the show?
I thought it was really creepy and compelling. And as someone who did stand-up for a long time, it made my skin crawl with some of the shows that he did, some of the venues that he performed in, because it just reminded me of all the crappy places that I've played. I thought it was brilliant, and I thought he was brilliant.
Yeah.
I thought everybody in it was really, really good. So, but
it's disturbing.
It's very, very disturbing.
I mean, I want to mention one more thing before we talk about the law. I know we're going to go to the lawsuit, but I mean, Jessica Gunning plays Martha. She's unbelievable. She is fantastic in this role. He, by the way, he lived this. His character, Donnie Dunn, is mentored and sexually abused by a TV writer who gives him a steady diet of heavy drugs. I mean, this is a real, real dark story, but you're right, brilliant. And now it has led to a lawsuit.
And, it's always very tricky when you're doing a show and it's either based on a true story,
right,
inspired by a true story. The big flaw with what's going on now with this lawsuit, well, the flaw, I think, against Gadd and Netflix is that they say very clearly, this is a true story. So if they say that, then everything in it has to be true. And she was never convicted of stalking, and she was never sentenced. And she was in the series. There was a court case. You saw them in court. And Netflix said that they were told, they were misled by Gadd, that he said it was a true story. So I have a feeling Netflix is going to pay some money to her.
Okay, so it's a true story is what they say. Now, when you see it's a true story, does that mean every single thing has to be true? Is that what you're saying?
Well, especially if you're saying that this character that is based on this woman was convicted of stalking and went to jail. I mean,
right.
That's
that's
defamation.
Is she? Well, it's not her name.
But
it would be defamation if it was her name.
They all know that it's her. She, look, she's flaky in this too, because I saw the interview she did on Piers Morgan.
Yes.
She said that because she was accused of what, like, I don't know, it was like a crazy amount of over 41,000 voicemails that emails that she sent him, and 350 hours of voicemails and whatever. She said at first that she never sent him anything, and then she said, well, maybe a few. And it was a joke. They were all jokes. So she tried to soften the blow of what they claim. But I mean,
the way I view it is, all those voicemails, all those emails, that is harassment. She is harassing him and stalking him, and because of that, because it's not her name, I don't think she's entitled to anything.
But I get what you're saying. I believe that she did harass him. I believe that she stalked him. But the show claims that she was convicted and that she went to prison for it.
But it's a fictional character.
But it's not a fictional character. It's him. It's his life. He said his name was different, but he did a one-man show, stage show.
He didn't put out her name. He put out a fake name.
I know, but his name is fake in the show too, and it is about his life.
But the only reason she's become this is a good debate. The only reason she's become a public person is because she came out and talked about the series, which was based on her. She didn't have to reveal herself. She chose to reveal herself.
Right.
I'll be interested to see where it goes. She's suing for $175 million.
Yeah, I don't think she's going to get that. But I think Netflix will maybe pony up some of this money.
Probably at the end of the day, she'll get some money. And by the way, at the end of the day, it's going to win Best Limited Series. Richard Gadd's going to win for Best Actor. Jessica Gunning's going to win for Best Actress. I just think they are such amazing performances. All right, here we go. Our guest today, God, I love House of the Dragon, has directed movies like How to Deal and The Wedding Date, and now she is a director for the hottest show in the world, House of the Dragon. Clare Kilner joins us. Clare, thanks a lot for coming on.
I'm so happy to be here talking to you guys.
So you have directed a total of 5 episodes, 2 this year, of House of the Dragon, which I just love. I cannot, like, Sunday nights when they come around, when we're in season, I'm like, oh, I so look forward to it. So congratulations on the show. I know you directed episode 2, which we just watched. It was fantastic.
Thank you. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. I think what's great about this show is that people, and I love the fact that it's 1 a week, because people sort of really connect on it. They watch it with groups of friends, and, that's what, telling stories is all about, sort of connecting with each other.
Yeah, there's something very cozy about it being old school, that you're not just binging.
Exactly.
The show is so dense that I don't think my brain can take seeing more than one at a time.
There are so many characters and they've all got so many rich stories. It's definitely, in the edit, it's like bringing it all together. There's an embarrassment of riches in terms of whose story you focus on when, and the actors, Ryan Condal and Sarah Hess and all their writers do an incredible job of, really working those stories and bringing them together. And then the actors, bring, all the detail of their characters and their character arcs. It's a real incredible collaboration.
So last year you directed episode 9, which was the penultimate episode, and that's always a big deal, the penultimate episode. And it is such a great, Eve Best busting in on the dragon during Aegon's coronation. I don't even know, how do you even shoot a scene like that? You've got actors, you've got CGI. How do you put it all together as a director?
I did ask myself that question when I read the script. It was like about 5 lines on the script, and I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? But the thing is, there's incredible teams of people. There's Rowley Earnham, who's the stunt coordinator, and he has an incredible team of people as well. You have makeup and hair, and they have incredible teams. You have, we had a military advisor who came in to train up, all the extras to do, for example, that archway of swords. We shot Rhaenys, like, working her way to the dragon pit in Spain. So we, we're working with, extras, essays from Spain as well as the UK. And, the production kind of schedule on this show is absolutely crazy. I have a brilliant DP, Alejandro Martinez, and an incredible first AD, Nick Hextall-Smith. And he sort of like forces me to like really get into the nitty gritty and the details of the scene. Because so we start with, I always start with the emotion and what is this story about, and what does it mean to me, and how does it feel personal to me? And then I do a bit of research. For example, what is it like when huge crowds of people are trapped in a room and someone's trying to close the doors and a bomb goes off, I like to draw from reality as much as I can. And then the set was as big as the Dragon Pit is as big or bigger than a football pitch, but our set is only half or a third of that size. So you have to shoot everything that Eve is facing. Say we're doing an over the shoulder of Eve looking at the days with all the royals on it. We have to do that against blue screen and then shoot the royals separately and make it smaller so the perspective is right for the length of a football pitch. So, and then we've got dragons and incredible VFX, people who, really, bring their A game.
So is all the interiors, or is that everything is a set? Is there any standing buildings that you are shooting in that are castle-like?
Oh, we have, in general, we have incredible sets. Jim Clay is the production designer, and, his whole team, I just can't believe what they do. Because, the first time when I arrived to work on the show, I stepped into, the castle, the Red Keep, and, I was just like looking around. It's just enormous. It's like walking into a castle in the Alhambra or in Spain or something, it's absolutely enormous. And there are so many incredible angles for filming. So, you never get tired of thinking about how to block things or where to put the camera. And we often work with 3 or 4 cameras as well. So, you have whole teams of people like finding beautiful and new angles in terms of how to present the space, because the space and every set has a character of its own.
So everything that's shot inside is a set.
Yes, there's some blue screen as well. Like, and sometimes the spaces are so vast that you shoot off it. So you might do a really big wide shot, and the top of the wide shot, you just see scaffolding, but then VFX will come in and fill that in, so that gives you the scope, the cinematic scope.
So I'm super nerdy, because when I was going to go on vacation a couple of years ago, I knew that they shot some of Game of Thrones in Dubrovnik. So there I am in Croatia, because I wanted to see exactly where Cersei had her walk of shame. By the way, what's weird about that is Hannah Waddingham from Ted Lasso is the lady who rang the bell and yelled shame, which is just crazy to me.
I know. I read that. That walk of shame, stayed with me forever. It was an incredible scene.
Yeah, one of the things I love about the show so much is the music, composed by, I think you pronounce it, Ramin Djawadi.
Yes.
I actually went to see, again, on the nerd front, I went to see him conduct an orchestra with Game of Thrones music, with a big screen with scenes from it, which was an amazing experience. Just beautiful.
I would love to have seen that. Yeah, it's very moving. His music is so stirring.
So I'm curious that you guys went with the same theme song for Game of Thrones, which to me kind of puts the two shows together, pulls the two shows together. But was there any movement to say, let's have a different theme song for House of Dragon?
I don't know. I wasn't really involved in those conversations. That's more the showrunners and the producers. I just think it's wise because it's so stirring, and there is that connection, and it will be, it has such, Game of Thrones has such an incredible legacy. I think we want to honor it and be part of it rather than just completely separate ourselves from it.
So the food on the table in these scenes is insane. What is actually on those tables? What food is there on those tables?
I mean, it was interesting for the wedding. The food was absolutely incredible, and there is absolute food that people can eat. And, everybody asked the actors what they will eat, what they won't eat, but there was a lot of fish on that table in the wedding. And, I have to say, those poor actors, we shot that wedding over 9 days. So you can imagine it's a little bit smelly. I mean,
Wow.
They keep changing it out, but there's hot lights and it's, it gets very unpleasant. But I do really love actors eating, when you're shooting. I hate it, when you've got a table, a dinner scene and people are just picking a tiny bit of food, because I think how each person eats tells you so much about their character.
Oh, that's interesting. You're right.
So I'm always telling them, eat, please eat,
Yeah.
So, yeah, they went for it.
One of the things I love about this show is that every character feels the weight of their family legacy, and they have a hard time outrunning that. You know what I mean? It's like they're playing out roles that are almost forced on them.
Yes.
As a director, when you talk with your actors, tell me how you talk to actors, particularly in the scope of the show, which is so large.
I mean, I think it always, for me as a director, I always want to find the personal, and I think it's surprising when you talk to people how much tragedy there has been in their family history. People die of illnesses, people die of suicide, people die of tragic accidents, and that all has a deep impact on ourselves, on our families, how people deal with it, how people are able to forgive, and some people are able to forgive and others aren't. So I feel it always comes to something very personal. When I meet actors for the first time, I tend to tell them my life story. Really put all my cards on the table about how it's affected me and made me vulnerable and my weaknesses and strengths, because I think that's what actors are going to bring themselves. And I want to bond with them and develop trust, because it makes the collaboration more exciting if we trust each other as well. And then, some actors, do want to tell their story, some don't. But I think it's just, we establish that we're really drawing from some truth and from some authenticity rather than trying to sort of create a fake world.
Right. One of the characters that is so interesting to me is Sir Kristen Cole. Because when he first came on the scene, and he was with Rhaenyra when, having his relationship with her, he seemed like he was so sweet. I mean, he even said, let's leave here. Let's get away from all of this and live this very simple life where we don't have to deal with all of this drama and tragedy. And then he's done this complete turnaround where he's kind of like an evil guy all of a sudden. It's like, oh my God, not you.
I know, it's so hard because Fabian Frankel, who plays Cole, is such a brilliant actor and such a lovely, warm person. When I met him on season 1, we just immediately hit it off. And, and so also when I'm directing each actor, I always see the world from their point of view. So when season 1 came out and everyone started hating him, I'm like, how can they hate my Cole? But I guess I see it. But I think some people are more fragile than others, and some people, rejection breaks them, and, there's a lot of people have a darkness simmering inside them, or that there is it's always interesting, one would like to think that you're a nice person, but, when push came to shove, are you? And so I think that line on what brings out our best and worst qualities is very interesting to explore.
Yeah.
So I really liked in episode 2, particularly the character of Otto Hightower, who, here's the thing. So in the world, we live in a world where there is propaganda. We live in a world where there is fake news. You know what? Rhaenyra is not responsible for the murder of Jaehaerys.
Yes.
That was obviously Daemon, but Otto uses that as a tool, and it feels like a very cold-hearted move because that would be I think that's his great-grandson, is it not?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's using him as a tool. I know he gets it at the end, but that character is so calculated and so political and so fascinating, I think.
Yeah. I mean, Rhys is an incredible actor and he's so articulate. You know, whenever you're rehearsing with him, he starts walking around the room and starts telling us about, you know, his character or the situation and all these sort of as ifs and how we compare it to the real life. And he's like a poet, to be honest. You know, how he talks about his character in the world is very moving. And, you know, he wants to avoid many deaths. You know, he wants to avoid war and death and destruction, you know, the death of hundreds and thousands, if not millions of people. So for him, he's doing what is best in order to, you know, I guess he thinks, you know, one or two may have to die for the greater good. So he sees himself as someone who's very, you know, even and does not get, and I think he's worked very hard to not let himself be swayed by emotion and, you know, really to try and do the right thing. And he absolutely wants to do the right thing. And of course, that may involve some manipulation, but it's always for the greater good in his eyes.
Right. And the position that he has, you know, you don't really see a lot of humanity in some people's decisions.
Yeah.
And when he was talking to it's Aemond, it's Aegon, right?
Aegon, yeah.
Aegon.
Yeah.
When he was talking to him and saying to him, like, you don't understand what you're doing here. You know, he's this bumbler king who really doesn't know what he's doing.
Yes.
And he was saying, like, you killed all these people. They had children, they had wives, they had husbands. You kind of didn't expect that from him to have such humanity. And that's what I really love about his character.
Yes. I thought Rhys was incredible in that scene. You know, I walked into the room after, you know, the model of old Valyria had been broken apart.
Yeah.
And we'd worked in the King's apartments, you know, for the whole season 1. And suddenly I walked in and it's, oh my goodness, this room is empty, you know, apart from a few little dusty bits of model on the floor. And thought, I really want to use this space. You know, it's at times, you know, the actors, because it's the period as well, don't get the chance to really walk and move in the space. So, you know, I talked to Tom and Rhys and said, what I really want to do is get the Steadicam and follow you. So I want you to move around as much as you like. You know, Alejandro lit the space so they could move into any areas. And we basically filmed one, got their performance, then filmed another one, got their performance, and then, you know, did Sir Kristen and then ended up with the wide shots. But I was so excited when I started seeing Rhys moving around and the camera following him. And it really felt he was physicalizing, you know, the sort of just frustration and desperation he felt, like dealing with someone who could not see his point of view and be a grown up and care about, you know, the people of King's Landing, the small folk.
Although I'll tell you what, with Otto Hightower gone, I think Aegon is just, I mean, it almost, in my mind, it almost guarantees a war. Because as you said, Otto Hightower was trying to avoid deaths. Meanwhile, Aegon is hanging every rat catcher at King's Landing. So I just feel like this thing is about to spin into a full-blown war, I think.
I'm not going to say anything.
Good. Let me ask you about Aemond. Aemond is super creepy. That scene where he's drinking the milk of the poppy, and he's in the arms of, I guess maybe a prostitute. Is that possible?
Yeah, the madam of the brothel. Yeah.
And he says, "I do regret that business with Luke, but I lost my temper. I am sorry." I do not believe for a second that he is sorry for anything he has done. That character, I think, is just one of the most brutally tough characters in the show.
Yes, I love how Ewan plays him, because he just is very quiet. You know, he seems quiet, and that he knows what he wants and he knows what he's doing. And, you know, as opposed to Aegon, you know, he's just very intelligent, and, you know, he's got a plan, and he's quite mysterious. We don't quite know what that plan is or what he wants. But, you know, you can tell he wants some sort of power.
Yes.
But it's interesting how people, you know, present themselves when they have very strong urges and needs. You know, some people have a hissy fit and like make a big song and dance, and some will, you know, very quietly, like a shark, just, you know, glide into what they want.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with this triangle of Alicent and Rhaenyra and Sir Cole, because the storyline of these best friends from when they were children and just butting up against one another. I mean, her husband was best friend's father, so you have all that history.
What?
And this revenge that Cole just desperately wants to have. You know, it's kind of, when I think about it, I kind of laugh a little bit, because I reminisce about situations that I had when I was a kid, and it was always a guy. I mean, I was in 6th grade, and my best friend was like making out and getting felt up by my boyfriend on the way for him to pick me up for our 6th grade prom. He stopped her house, and I didn't find out about it until much later in life. And I was like,
horrible.
"Oh, you bastard, both of you."
Yeah. How did you find out? Did someone?
She told me. She finally told me.
I mean, yeah, a lot. Yeah, especially in those teen years, a lot goes down. I think people are like trying to like work out who they are, and the lines of morality get very blurred when, you know, people are sort of falling in love left, right, center, or falling in lust left, right, and center.
Yeah. So the big finale of episode 2 was the fight between Eric and Eric, the twins.
Yes.
And the actors Luke Tittensour and Elliot Tittensour are actually twins, and shockingly resemble each other to a great degree. And that makes this such a the thing I love is I didn't know who was winning at any given point. And even at the end, I didn't know who had won the fight. I thought, how do you stage a fight like that? What goes into that?
I mean, it's those guys, Luke and Elliot, first of all, brought so much to the party. They started training for it really early on. And, you know, we used to have to say, can you do it half speed? Can you do it quarter speed? Because they would just throw themselves into it. And they were so excited and about this scene. And so was I as well, because it's incredibly moving. They worked with Rowley for months before we shot it. And then when we came into the space, you know, I think part of it is that they're exhausted. They fight and they get so exhausted, and they're looking at each other and they love each other. So for me, it was like a dance of love. And I was talking to, you know, when they're, even when it comes to the moment of the kill, that they're looking into each other's eyes with love and imagining all those moments. It's almost like a film going through their head of that they had together. But, you know, this is what they have to do. And, you know, their loyalty comes before their family, their family bonds. I mean, it was, I'm not going to lie, they look so alike. And I love them both so much. They're just brilliant guys. Everybody in the company adores them. So everyone was a little bit gutted to have to do this scene, but it was very exciting. And, when we were shooting, I remember one moment where we were shooting it in segments, and one of them was like on the ground, and I was like, remember, you've got to attack the queen. You're going for the queen. He said, Claire, and everyone, the whole crew were watching, and he's like, Claire, I'm not Eric. I'm Eric. And I was like, I got the wrong one, and everyone just burst out laughing, and I'm like, oh. So yeah, I had problems working at which one's which.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about the twins. Was there ever hijinks on set with the two of them, saying that one was the other?
Not to me. It may have happened, but not with me that I knew, that I was aware of. Who knows?
So I've got one last thing. The thing that I love about the show, and I think this is going to be great this year, is that there are characters on both sides of this coming war that I really like and root for. So in a way, I'm going to be twisted all season long because for example, I'm on Team Rhaenyra for sure. I'm a big Rhaenyra fan. But I also think Alicent has a nice storyline to her, and I feel for Alicent and that friendship. So there are people on both sides. So it makes sense if you root for the black or the greens or anybody in between. And that's what makes the show very personal, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And, also at times you just root for the women because they, a lot of them do talk sense, and the guys are out there creating wars and going a bit mad, and they are just, desperately trying to, get some sort of agency.
Yeah. It's just an amazing show, and your episode was spectacular. I love your penultimate episode last year. I know you've got one coming up as well. Congratulations on everything. Believe me, we're hanging on every scene, every Sunday. Thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely talking to you both.
I just wanted to show you what I actually put together. This was the tree.
Brilliant.
Relationship. Because I was saying to Steve, I feel like I had to take a class in order to have this interview because it is so massive, and the density. Yeah,
I have one of those up in my office, and I'm always referring to it when I'm shooting. I literally.
There you go.
Awesome, Claire. Well, thank you. We'd love to do this again down the line.
I'd love that too. Take care.
There you have it. House of the Dragon. And as I told Claire, I'm hanging on every episode. And you made a point during the show that I think is interesting. You said it's good that it comes out on a weekly basis, old school. That is so important. I think when you just drop a show all at once, there's no chance, there's no water cooler chat, there's no buzz about it. Nobody, you can say, are you watching it? What episode are you on? At least the House of the Dragon, we all watch this episode and have a week to talk about it before we see the next chapter. And I think that's really good and healthy and drives the audience for the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said to her and you, it's just way too dense to take in. For me personally, I have a hard time just keeping focused on everything that's going on sometimes because it is so complicated. And if I had to watch 2 or 3, I don't know if I'd like it as much. I like that I have to wait for it.
Can I tell you? I binged Game of Thrones, like 5 seasons of Game of Thrones all at once. It was also a great experience.
Okay.
Because you just rolled from one episode to the next. So if you want to binge it, it's great. Like you started binging Game of Thrones a little bit, right? Now you're on House of the Dragon.
Yeah. But I think I watched 2 episodes of Game of Thrones so far.
Yeah. It's just as a franchise, and this is a perfect extension of the Game of Thrones franchise. It is just fantastic. It's fantastic. Hey, if you are listening and watching right now, if you're listening, make sure you subscribe to the show on Apple or Spotify. Leave us a 5-star rating and a review. And if you're watching, hit the like button and then leave us any kind of comment you want. You want to comment on the interview, on the show, just do that. And our YouTube channel is the Culture Pop Podcast YouTube channel. It is great seeing you, Sue, and we will see everybody next time on the Culture Pop Podcast.